Welcome to Just a Cup on Believe. I am Bryan Fetzer. This is an organic conversation with some of the world's greatest athletes and the individuals that help them along on their journey. And today I have a very special one, Kaylee Frederick, who is the youngest individual to ever run Badwater 135. And we're going to get into what Badwater 135 is. She's an ultra marathoner, which I can't even wrap my head around a little bit. But Kaylee, welcome to the show. And I am excited to dive in and kind of figure out why in the world you would run 135 miles.
Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to talk to y'all today.
Well, let's ultra marathoning. Okay. I don't like to run, or I'd like to drive a marathon, you know, let alone run it. And an ultra, is classified as over 100 miles. Am I right?
Most of the time, ultras can start at like a 50K, which is only 32 miles, like anything more than a marathon. But
I,
the more miles, the better.
I love how you just said only 32 miles. Um, that's that's a great way to start, right?
Yeah.
So Badwater. I'm going to let you describe it a little bit more, but to give context to those listening, Badwater's in California. It goes from Death Valley, which Death Valley is the lowest point to 280 feet below sea level. And it goes all the way up 135 miles to Mount Whitney, which is essentially, it's over 2,500 meters, which is essentially just under 3 miles in elevation. What possessed you to want to run that as young as what you are?
My friend Keith Straw, who at the time he had 8 finishes, now he has 9 finishes there. But I was just talking to him and he was like, I think you could run this race. I think you could be the youngest one to ever do it. And so I started looking into it and I was like, I think I could run this race. I think I could be the youngest one to ever do it.
And then you just how do you even start training for it?
That's a great question. I ran a lot last year. Like I ran a lot of ultras last year. So I used races to train for other races. So to get up my like actual mileage training, I just did a lot of other races. And then I just had little training during the week, but mostly I just raced last year. And then I did a lot of like sauna training too to get ready for the heat that's out there.
Sauna training?
Yeah, it's pretty hot out there.
You got to dive into that. I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, well, I would just sit in the sauna and read a book. It's pretty small. There wasn't a lot of room in there.
So you'd sit in a sauna, read a book to acclimate to the temperature in Death Valley. How hot did it get while you were running?
I believe the hottest was like 120s. I don't ask while I'm out there. I don't want to know because I have to run either way. I don't need to know how hot it is. But I believe in the 120s, somewhere in there.
Wow. Wow. So, okay. How did you get into running in the first place?
Loaded question. I
Very
started,
loaded question.
yeah. I,
We can go back. We've got a couple minutes. It's not a problem.
Yeah, so we gotta go all the way back. When I was 7 years old is when I originally started running. I would just run 5Ks, 10Ks, things like that.
It's
I
7.
thought, yeah, I thought I was the greatest person alive. I was like, I can run 3 miles. And I was decent at it, like locally, I could actually compete in some of the smaller races. But I just kind of got older. I thought I was doing everything 10K, 6 miles. And when I turned 13, my elementary school music teacher invited me to run a half marathon with her. And I was like, a half marathon? Absolutely not. That's 13 miles. Only the elite athletes can run a half marathon. There's no way. But I agreed eventually after she convinced me. And we had a lot of fun. And I was like, wow, so running a little farther can actually be fun. So then I started to look for a marathon I could run. But it was pretty difficult because most of them have age limits, and I was only 14. But eventually, my friend Kristen found one that I could run, and so I went out and ran that. And then she was like, an ultra marathon, a 50K, it's only 5 more miles. And I was like, only 5 more miles, we can do that. And then I crewed for her at her first 100-mile race,
What does
and
crew mean?
just kind of drive to all the aid stations, like give her anything she needs, take care of her. And I paced her the last 50 miles. So I ran the last 50 miles with her. And for me being out there as a 14-year-old, just seeing all these people doing what I thought was actually impossible and suffering, but pushing through it and being so mentally strong, I just knew like these are my people and this is where I want to be and this is who I want to be. So, and then it all just kind of grew. I ran my own 50 miler when I was 14, and then I ran my first 100 miler when I was 16, and we've just kind of kept going.
And you're currently 19 years old, is that correct? Or you just turned 20?
I'm 19. I'll turn 20 in a couple weeks.
Wow. So you've run all these, ultra races under the age of 20, and you seem like you're just getting started on this. You seem like you really enjoy the running aspect. I would have to ask, what in the world do you think about when you're running Badwater, when you're running anything? I mean, I get distracted, when I'm walking down the stairs, going to the car. Eh, You know, what do you think about when you're running 130 some miles or 100 miles, whatever it is?
There's a lot of time to think about a lot of things. I like to do a lot of math in my head, calculating paces and splits and mileage and things, because that keeps your mind occupied. It takes a while to do long division in your head. So we like to do math. And then other
Yeah.
times you just have to process, give your brain a chance to not be so focused on everyday life that you can actually slow down for a minute and process things that you've just put off for however long because life gets in the way.
That, that's fascinating. I don't even know how to describe that. What career do you want to go into? I mean, does it involve math, or does it involve, you know, what's the longer term plans of, hey, in 10 years, Kaylee wants to be X profession?
Um, so our reality goal in life is to be a high school biology and or chemistry teacher. Our dream goal in life is to be a professional runner.
Well, you seem like you're well on your way. I mean, do you have sponsorships right now? Uh,
No,
we got
I
to
would
get
like
you
to
some. We got to get
eventually.
you some
Yeah,
sponsorships.
I would love that.
Absolutely. I can imagine that the ultra community is really small. I mean, it can't be a massive, like a football community or a basketball community. The ultra has to be pretty small because one, there's not a ton of races, and two, there's not a bunch of people that have the the mental fortitude to run 100+ miles. Is that true?
Yeah, for me, I'm always like, there's so many people that run these races, but that's because that's who I surround myself with.
Mm.
But if you're not actually in the ultra community, it actually is pretty small. Sometimes I have to be like, oh yeah, there's not a lot of people here. But that's kind of one of the great things about it. Everyone in the ultra community is so kind and supportive. Like, a lot of times what you find with shorter distances and, like, even marathoning, so super, super competitive, and that's kinda all a lot of people care about, but I feel like the longer distance you get, the more people are like, "We're all here to finish. We all wanna see each other finish, and we will do whatever we can to get us all there."
I would imagine with the ultra races, it's not necessarily about the time, but actually finishing.
Yeah,
Am I correct on that?
a lot of the time. And now, granted, obviously, some of the better athletes are there to run a race and get a good time. But in the end, a lot of it just boils down to things happen. You could be on pace for a perfect time, hit the splits you want, and then halfway through, something goes wrong. And you just have to grind it out to the finish. And you have to be okay with that because stuff happens. A lot can go wrong in 100 miles.
Yeah, I mean, there a lot can go wrong, but you can recover a little bit. I mean, there's the margin for error is probably a lot smaller from a time standpoint because if you know you can recover if you got 50 miles to go in a race as opposed to if you're running
Mhm.
100 and you screw up, you're not going to run real fast.
Yeah, that's the important part. You have to my friend Joe and I always say not too high, not too low. Because if you screw up, you can't let yourself get too low. You just kind of gotta ride it out because you'll come out of the low, you'll hit a high, and then you'll probably go back into another low. But then you'll come out of that. You just have to make sure you moderate yourself. Don't let yourself go too crazy.
That's great. That's great advice. That's great life advice. I mean, that's how life is. You're gonna have your highs, you're gonna have your lows, and how do you get through um, preparing for one of these races? Where from a mental standpoint, I mean, it's pretty grueling. Is there things you do from a mental standpoint to prepare yourself for one of the competitions?
I feel like going into your first 100 miler, your first 50 miler, there's not a lot mentally you can do because I feel like you can't really know what it feels like unless you're actually in that position and you have to grunt it out and grind it out. But now that I'm more experienced, I'm just kind of always trying to process things and think about what can go wrong ahead of time and just be prepared for that. So if I get hit with it in the race, it won't completely throw me off.
That makes sense. And it's part of it. I mean, shoot, you're running for as long as what you're running for. When do you have a community that you run with right now? Do you have a team around you that you
Uh,
practice with on a regular basis?
I run with Johnstown Running Club a lot. I like them. They're cool people. This year, at the beginning of the year, I was running with them a lot more, but as my training has gotten a little more serious and I've been really focused on my races, I've kind of been running alone more just because I
Mm.
have to focus on my own training. But when I can, I like to go to group runs and just hang out with people because I like running. I like hanging out with runners.
Did you ever run cross country? Or I mean, I know you're just in college right now. I mean, did you ever run cross country or track in high school or junior high or anything like that?
I did track all throughout high school, and then they finally convinced me to do cross country my senior year because I also played soccer, so
Okay.
I didn't want to do both. But my senior year, I did do both. And then in college, I ran track and cross country the first like semester and a half. And then I was like, I'm just burning myself out. I don't enjoy track. I don't enjoy cross country. I want to go run ultras. There's no point in me giving up my training and running for a little team when I can't compete with college athletes because I'm really not good at that kind of running. So
Right.
I was like, I just need to focus on what's going to get me somewhere in the future and on what actually makes me happy. So I left after like a semester and a half of that.
Well, I mean, the longest college race would be 10K, which is far far less than an ultra for sure. Is there any kind of foods that you enjoy eating? Um, Maybe in preparation for a race. We'll give you two things because you know being from Johnstown, I mean Western Pennsylvania, there's some good foods, but they're probably not the most nutritious when it comes to an athlete standpoint. So we'll go there second. We'll go to the I'll call it the the binge foods that you want to kind of eat after you're done maybe. But what do you eat from a eating standpoint, kind of in preparation for just even daily or for an ultra?
Generally, I pretty much eat the same thing every day. For lunch, I have chicken, either rice or quinoa, and some sort of vegetable. And then for dinner, I usually have some sort of meat and a vegetable. Very basic. And then before a race, I like carbs for real. Pizza, spaghetti. Give me the good stuff.
I said, I mean, what do you take during a race? Like, what is your go-to while you're racing?
I've been very bad at fueling in the past, but I've been getting better with it. My coach has been hammering very hard that I need to feel better and everything. So I've been trying very hard. And I've been using Science and Sport gels. Sometimes I'll have cheese quesadillas that they have them at the aid station. I don't like Uncrustables when I'm running, but I will force them down if I have to. Bananas, gummies, things like
Mm.
that.
I mean, I can imagine it's really just about getting something in your system, but at the same time, not having it sit in your gut, while you're running. You don't want too much, probably don't want too much water, but that kind of right balance. And I would imagine as your career grows, the understanding of what fuels you the best is gonna hit the best.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a lot better. Even just in the past like 2 months, I've been experimenting with things more and I've gotten a better system. But hopefully, just the more I run, the more experience I get, the better we'll get so that we can run farther, run faster, have more fun.
You're listening to Just a Cup on Believe. Hopefully, you're enjoying the conversation so far. Please like, subscribe, and share it. We can continue to grow this amazing experience having guests on from all over the place. Today, I have Kaylee Frederick, who is an ultra marathoner. And even more so, she's the youngest to ever finish and to compete in the Badwater 135 out in California. She's only 19 years old, which is beyond impressive. And we're talking about just really everything that has to do with marathon, ultra marathoning. And that's, things above 50 miles, but really when you start getting into the 100-mile range. And Kaylee, I wanted to ask you this. I saw, you have on social media Luke 137 from the Bible. What in the world does that mean? And what what significance does that play in your life?
For me, I've always been very religious. I was raised in a church. Honestly, the first church I went to wasn't great. Now we're at a new church and I really, really like it. My pastor is so supportive. He actually supports my running a lot. He's great. But I've always just knew there was something else out there. And I know so many people are like, you can't prove that God is real and things like that. But for me, I just feel like I kind of know. And in running, especially, I feel like not a lot of people my age can run like I do or have the ability to run like I do. So I feel like for some reason, God gave me the ability to run like I can at such a young age. And I want to do something with it. And I want to inspire others with it. And I want to just kind of do good by Him because I feel like He's given me such a cool ability and really need to use it. And for with God, um, all things are possible is Luke 137. And I feel like in my running, nothing is really impossible. I always try to set goals that are insane that most people would say you can't do that. You're only 16, you're only 18, whatever. And then just go do it because if it's meant to be, God will carry me through as long as I am have him close to my heart the whole time. He knows what we're capable of and he won't lead me in the wrong direction. So
Wow. That's you getting some preaching in. That was good. That's awesome. So when you start talking about, goals and desires, what are next on the bucket list? I mean, I know there's not a ton of ultra, marathons or ultra competitions that I know of. But I mean, I do know of Barkley because I've seen the documentary. It's probably one of the, more famous documentaries out there of the run up there in the hills of West Virginia. I've read about like the 6633 Arctic Ultra up in Antarctica, which is crazy. I mean, it's or not Antarctica, the Arctic Circle. But yet there's a Patagonia race. Are any of those kind of on your bucket list, or is there something specific that you want to do next or in the future?
There's so many things on my bucket list. Barkley's definitely on there. And then there's so many races. I would love to get to travel the world and run all over the world. Western states, Cocodona 250, Triple Crown of 200s. There's just so much that I want to do that I have to be patient because I really just want to go do everything now. But I know that I have to be patient and my time will come when I'm supposed to run those races. I will.
What's next?
Right now I'm training for Fat Ox 24-hour on November 23rd.
Well, now what is that? Where is that located?
That is in Goodyear, Arizona, and it is a 0.98-mile loop that you run as many times as you can for 24 hours.
So you could run 300 miles or you can run 100 miles. It doesn't really matter, really.
Yeah, I don't think it would be possible to run 300,
No, probably
but
not in 24 hours.
theoretically,
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 theoretically, there's going to be it's more on how far you can run as opposed to how fast you can run
yes, yeah,
to complete a
and
course.
you can kind of do whatever. Some people go out, run a couple laps, and then they sleep for a few hours, and then they run a few more laps. But other people, they go out, and once they start, they don't stop, and they're not going to stop for 24 hours.
Have you ever dabbled in the triathlon world? I mean, two of my last guests that we had on Just a Cup, Chelsea Sardo and Sam Teller, both triathletes, which is different than ultra, but it's in that same kind of vein that goodness gracious, it takes 24 hours or Sam's is a little bit he calls it a speed thing because it's only like 3 hours, which I start shaking my head when I think about that stuff. But um have you ever dabbled in the triathlon world?
I don't like swimming or biking, so we'll stick to running.
I can appreciate that 100%. 100%. Um, okay, let's talk about Johnstown food a little bit. I don't even know if you know this, but that's where I was born. So I'm a Johnstonian, and there's some great food, but it's really not necessarily for the athletic, natured person. But what is your cravings? Some hometown cravings.
Oh boy, I feel like there's not much here anymore, but we'll go with the fifth. They have really good boneless wings. Those are good. Garlic parm.
Boneless wings. I was thinking about like pierogies and
Oh,
Coney Island hot dogs or something crazy like that.
no, I'm basic, Nothing fancy around here.
That's some good old Polish food or Czech food that's in town.
I'm telling you, there's not much here anymore.
What is so okay? So what do you like to do when you're not running? What are hobbies that you have? If you can even have time for any, and being a college student and so forth.
Oh boy, yeah, I really don't do much. I work 3 jobs. I'm in school, and I run CrossFit. I guess I go to CrossFit pretty much
Well,
every day.
CrossFit, that's definitely. I mean, you got to be strong. Make sure the rest of the parts, the body stay fit. Um, you said you're studying. I mean, where do you work right now? I'm trying to think of how do you have time to do anything else other than run in school?
We get up early. Right now I work at the Meadows. I'm a tutor and I'm a coach at CrossFit Incline.
CrossFit Incline. Gotcha. Good place. What is your training regimen like right now? Like what's a
Usually,
what I'm saying is for somebody that's listening that says, "Hey, you know what? I've done a marathon. I want to try to do something else." What is a typical training week or training regimen for somebody preparing for an ultra?
usually, so Monday I'll have easy miles, usually pretty short. Tuesday I'll have a speed workout. Wednesday will be like medium miles. Thursday, I have a hill workout. Friday will usually be pretty short. Saturday, long run. Sunday, medium run. And if I would really need a day off, then I would usually take Monday off if I would need a day off.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give you a couple words, and I just want you to rapid fire tell me the first things that come to your mind and explain it. So I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ultra.
Marathon.
Okay. Badwater.
The world's toughest foot race.
Johnstown.
The greatest little town in Pennsylvania.
Confidence.
Not very much of it.
All right. Anxiety.
Too much of it.
Okay, those are some. Now I'm going to dive into a little bit more. Why do you think you don't have great confidence?
My brain's a little crazy sometimes. It doesn't do the right things up there. So I feel like for me, it's just a lot of we can always do better. I feel like there's always more left in the tank, which I know isn't always a great way to think. For me, I'm very much proud but never satisfied, but then I forget about the proud part. So then we're just straight never satisfied. But we're working on it. We're working on it.
Okay, let's ask about the anxiety part now. When you said too much of it, why would you think you have too much anxiety?
Uh, Again, my brain doesn't always work right. For me, I'm not great with people, especially with like runners. I'm good because those are my people, but
Hmm.
otherwise, I'm not great. I'm I very much hyper focus on things, stress about things that aren't that big a deal. But it's okay because we're working on that too.
No, I mean that's great. I think for somebody that is 19 years old to have an understanding of things that they got to work on is a huge piece of that. And that's you know it's phenomenal that you come forth and say that, because I would think that a lot of young people or people that would be listening to this that are thinking, man, she ran 135 miles. She did what somebody has never done before. And to say that, hey, you have confidence, issues, or you deal with anxiety. I think of that's inspiring to a lot of people because it shows real. It shows that, hey, somebody's not this superhuman being. They're just like everybody else, and that's impressive.
I'm just a normal person, and I think the issue with a lot of professional athletes and things like that is when it's all social media and they're not real, and then there's just these unrealistic expectations. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be honest. Not everyone's got something they have to work on. Can't all be sunshine and rainbows.
Man, that is that's a great way to close the show. Giving some massive advice. I appreciate that. I appreciate that's awesome. Um, so you said you got one coming up, and is there any bucket list that's going to be accomplished this year on a race?
So Fat Ox 24 hour is the USITF 24 hour national championship. So if I would win that and run at least 130 miles, then that would give me a guaranteed spot on the USA 24-hour national team. So that's definitely a goal. I know it's not going to be a guaranteed win, and I know there are a lot of other really good females competing. So it'll be difficult, but it's possible. But it's also not possible. So we're gonna do the best we can, and hopefully it pays off.
I love it. What how can somebody get a hold of you or find you on social media, and if they're interested in maybe becoming a sponsor or just reaching out, finding out more about what you do?
Definitely just send me a message on Instagram at Frederick.Kaylee. Or if you're a runner and you send me a friend request on Facebook, I'll probably accept it if you look like a runner. But Instagram is definitely the best way to reach me. I like to keep my stuff public on there just because I like to share about running. So
No, I mean that's a a great way to do it. Like I said, the running community is a tight knit group, and there's some amazing people in it, and hopefully people will follow your story and follow. How can somebody find out about ultra marathons? Is there like a specific website or a group? I mean, where do you find out where these marathons, ultra marathons are?
If you go on Ultra sign up, that has like a lot of ultras that you could sign up for. But there's also just like a ton of Facebook groups. There's a ton of blogs that people make and put up online and things like that. So, a ton of ultra athletes you can follow.
And I would imagine the range is, pretty big from what people do, their backgrounds and so forth, the people running ultras. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. We're from all over the place.
Wow. Kaylee Frederick from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, goes to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, and she is an ultra marathoner. It was great having you on the show today, Kaylee, and look forward to following your progress. And you're really young in the sport, so we have many, hopefully many years left of seeing you compete and hit the top ranks.
Thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. You're the
Absolutely.
greatest.
Absolutely. Hey, you've been listening to Just a Cup on Believe. Hopefully you'll like, subscribe, and share. We're on YouTube, but we're also on the Believe Network, which is our host. And you can go to believe.com and find a ton of shows. There's every team, every topic, everywhere. It's Believe. Have a great one and be blessed, my friends.